half of European men share King Tut's DNA. This is real science, guys. You can go to Reuters.com, you can go to the medical journals and look it all up, because that's where they went. They went to Europe, and along the way, mating with various different races, by the time they got there, a lot of them ended up being a different color of person. But the DNA doesn't lie. The DNA can be traced back to King Tut, basically to the Egyptians is really what it's saying. We go back to the Sumerian kings. We go back to Sumerian kings before the flood. As now, the Sumerian kings who ruled for thousands and thousands of years, now then had these pharaonic lines after the Great Flood that they kind of handed over the leadership to be the liaison between them and the human beings. Now these people, these pharaonic bloodlines in the beginning were half human and half Atlantean or half Anunnaki, depending on how you want to call it. They would only give the initial power, this pharaonic power, to somebody who had their blood in them. So these pharaonic people are directly related to the Sumerian kings. Then you have them getting conquered and kind of moving out of the area over time and migrating, the bloodlines migrating across into Europe. Now they're a monarchy. So you see, we go from Sumerian kings list in ancient Iraq, all the way now, we've gone with this bloodline taken all the way into Europe. This is where we are right now.
Paya, a Kushite king who conquered Egypt between 744 and 714 BC, is credited with founding the 25th dynasty. He ruled from Napata, a city in modern-day Sudan's Nubia region. Paya was Kashta and Pabachma's son. He had 3 or 4 wives, according to accounts. His heir, Taharka's mother, was Abar. Notable wives include Tabiri, Peksater, and perhaps Kensa. Paya, who was king of Nubia and Upper Egypt, took advantage of the fact that Egypt's other rulers were fighting with each other to expand Nubia's power beyond Thebes and into Lower Egypt. In response to this, Tenakht of Sais put together a group of Delta region kings and tried to get Paya's supposed ally, King Nimlot of Hermopolis, to join his side. Tefnakht then sent his coalition army south and besieged Heracleopolis, where the king, Peftiawawibast, and the Nubian commanders asked Pai for help. In his 20th year as king, when this problem came up, Pai quickly put together an army to invade Middle and Lower Egypt. He also went to Thebes in time for the big Apet festival, which shows that he had already taken control of Upper Egypt. His military achievements are recorded on the Victory Stela located at Gebel Barkal, which includes the following. Hear what I have done in exceeding the ancestors. I am the king, the representation of God, the living image of Atum, who issued from the womb marked as ruler, who is feared by those greater than he, whose father knew and whose mother perceived even in the egg that he would be ruler, the good God, beloved of the gods, the son of Re, who acts with his 2 arms, Pai, beloved of Amun. Pai considered his campaign as a holy war and commanded his warriors to prepare themselves prior to engaging in battle. He personally made offerings to the mighty god Amun. Pai then marched north and won a decisive victory at Heracleopolis, including the conquest of Hermopolis and Memphis, as well as the submission of the monarchs of the Nile Delta, such as Luput II of Leontopolis, Osorkon IV of Tanis, and his erstwhile ally Nimlot at Heracleopolis. Hermopolis surrendered to the Nubian king following a 5-month battle. Tefnakht took refuge on an island in the delta and admitted defeat in writing to the Nubian monarch, but he refused to pay personal tribute to the Cushitic ruler. Paya, pleased with his victory, sailed south to Thebes and then went to his native Nubia, never to return to Egypt. Despite Paya's decisive victory into the delta, his authority was limited to the western desert oases and Heracleopolis, where Peftiawawibast ruled as a Nubian vassal king. Without Pai watching over them, the local kings of Lower Egypt, especially Tefnakht, were pretty much free to do what they wanted. In his second regnal year, Shabitku, Paya's successor, corrected this unsatisfactory situation by attacking Sais and defeating Tefnakht's successor Bakanranef there. The year 24, Akhet Day, 10 date mentioned in the smaller Dakhla Stela, Ashmolean Museum number 1894, from the Sutek Temple of Mut El Karab in the Dakhla Oasis, was long thought to be Paya's highest known date. Nevertheless, reliefs from the Great Temple at Gebel Barkal show Paya enjoying the Heb Sed festival. Such festivities were usually held in the 30th year of a king's reign. It is uncertain whether the reliefs depicted historical events or were made in advance for the celebration. If the latter, then Pi may have passed away prior to his 30th regnal year. Based on the year 8 donation stela of a king often regarded as Pi's rival, Shepsesre Tefnacht, Kenneth Kitchen has proposed that Pi ruled for 31 years. The tomb of Pi was placed adjacent to the largest pyramid in the cemetery, in El Kuru, near Jebel Barkal, in what is now northern Sudan. The burial chamber is an open trench cut into the bedrock and covered by a corbelled brick roof. A 19-step staircase that opens to the east leads to the chamber. His body was placed on a bed that rested in the center of the chamber on a stone bench whose 4 corners had been carved out to accommodate the bed's legs, so that the bed platform rested directly on the bench. His 4 favorite horses were buried at the border of the cemetery, the first pharaoh to get such an interment in over 500 years. This location would also house the tombs of some subsequent dynasty members. The Stele of Pi was published in 1872 by Auguste Mariette, following its discovery in Jebel Barkal. It has a front, a back, and 2 thick sides that are all covered in text. In 1876, Emmanuel de Rouge published a comprehensive word-by-word French translation.
Egypt, they believed in what's called Kemet, the people that existed before the Egyptians. When we hear these stories about the Great Pyramid being a tomb for the pharaoh, it's worth mentioning that even the locals didn't believe that. The saying that the pyramids were built to be tombs for the pharaohs wasn't even developed until 150 years ago. That's it. They were taught Kemet. And it's worth mentioning that when you go through inside these pyramids of Giza, there's not one single glyph in any of them whatsoever. There was never a mummy found in any Egyptian pyramid ever. Quite literally, the only reason why we are told this stuff is because that was the theory developed by these men that went in there and said, I believe these must have been for the pharaohs. That makes sense.
So it's all just one group of people had one theory, and that theory just stuck around.
100%.
When they unwrapped King Tut's mummy in 1925, they found an iron dagger in his tomb. Now, this was confusing because the tomb was buried 2,000 years before Egypt had access to iron. Historically speaking, this dagger was impossible, unless the iron came from an unusual source. You see, a recent study found Widman-Staten patterns on the blade, and these patterns only exist on meteorites. It makes you wonder who forged this weapon. In the 1900s, a man named Schmidt dug this tunnel through a mountain completely by hand. It took him 38 years to finish because he was carving through solid granite. Now, there are many theories as to why he did this. Some think he dug this tunnel as a shortcut to the other side of the mountain. But when a road was built that eliminated the need for a shortcut, he still kept digging. And when he finally finished the tunnel in 1938, he sold it and moved away.
Pharaoh married his own daughters and had 162 children. This is Egypt's most powerful pharaoh, Ramses II. He ruled Egypt for more than 60 years and brought a lot of prosperity to the kingdom. However, he is infamous for marrying his own daughters, which wasn't uncommon in ancient Egypt. He was called the ruler of rulers and was known as the world's best builder. During his reign, he constructed many monuments, temples, and structures. Not only a great architect, he had a great military mind. He expanded Egypt's borders and brought a lot of prosperity and riches to his kingdom. He died at the age of 90 due to arthritis.
A Black American from Atlanta named Dexter just found out that he is a direct descendant of King Ramses III of Egypt.
You have such an interesting history. Please explain what made you do a DNA test, and then what happened when you found out all of a sudden that you're related to Ramses III?
That's a great question, Emily. Well, about a year and a half ago, I traveled to places like Israel, France, and different places like that. So what happened was people would always ask a normal question, where are you from? And I would say the States, United States. And the people I saw in France would say, no, where are you really from? And I said, the States. That's all I know. And so that question stuck with me for a long time. And I just said, where am I actually from? I mean, I know I'm American, but where my DNA is from. And so I said, well, let me take my DNA test. It was a 23andMe DNA test. And I took the test, and I was shocked when I saw the results. It came back, and it showed that I was actually a direct descendant of the Pharaoh Ramses III. And I knew nothing of the pharaohs. didn't know much about Egypt, but everything you hear about, Bible stories and things like that. So for me, it was a huge shock, and that's how I found out about it.
Wow. So obviously you took it deeper and deeper. You saw all of these synchronicities in looking at images of the pharaoh, how much you and even your brother look like them, and your own company has like an eye logo that looks like the eye of Horus, unconnected to any of this. So what did this open up for you in terms of your own knowledge and learning about this?
I remember I was actually laying in my bed on Christmas Day, 2021, and I was going through my 23andMe DNA test, and that's when I saw that I was connected to the Pharaoh Ramses III. And again, I knew nothing of this situation. And so I looked up a sculpture of the Pharaoh Ramses III, and when I saw the sculpture, I literally screamed. And my wife said, Dexter, what's wrong? I said, this guy from 4,000 years ago, we look just alike. And she said, Dexter, wait a minute. There were no pictures from 4,000 years ago. I said, no, his sculpture was the Pharaoh Ramses III. His sculpture, we look like identical twins. And she said, let me see it. She saw it. She said, oh, my goodness. And then I continued to go over different sculptures, looking online. And I saw the sculpture that looked just like my brother. If you could show that on the screen, it'd be absolutely amazing. But it was, and I looked at the sculpture and I said, this looks just like my brother Joe. And I called my brother Joe and I said, I'm going to send you something. And he said, where'd you get that from? It looks just like me. I said, that's a sculpture of the Pharaoh Ramses III. And he said, oh my God. I said, that's over 4,000 years old and looks identical, just like you. So we were blown away, completely blown away.
Uh-oh. This is not going to go with the narrative the European archaeologists want us to believe. So I'm not sure what they're going to say, but I can see it coming. I can see them sitting down and coming up with an explanation as to how this Black American is a direct descendant of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh. Explain that to us kindly, because you seem to think that the Egyptian, the pharaohs, the ancient time leaders were not black, or they're not descendants of Africans, and they're actually Europeans or they're Arabs. So let's just wait for their explanation. Anyways, fam, what are your thoughts about this man from Atlanta that just...
What did the sun taught you? Oh, what did the sun teach me? That all physical reality is sustained by motion, and anything that is no longer at an electromagnetic vibratory frequency undergoes what is called death, which is the permanent termination of biological functions with the state of living organism.
If you fuse your spirit body or your etheric body with your physical body, you can eat directly from the source. So, the soles of your hands, the soles of your feet, the palms of your hand, these transmute energy. These are your 11 chakras. Your aura is you have 7 levels of existence. You only see them with the 2 eyes, which is the 3rd dimension, which is the densest level. You have a 7th eye, which is your crown chakra. When your kundalini is flowing, you're supposed to know this, Mr. Amira. When no, it's Egyptian as well. When your kundalini energy is flowing and all your chakras are aligned, your light body is permeating, and your light body takes over the physical realm. And you see when shell, now you eat on that realm because that is the driver that's in control. So you have never transmigrated the physical realm, so you don't have no experience.
When we're dealing with the Caucasian not having no soul, you have to understand, in order to possess the cosmic essence, you have to have melanin, a specific component of melanin, being neuromelanin, the one with the N, not the E. Caucasians only have pheomelanin, which is animal melanin. They cannot get above the animal plane conscious level. You see animals kill, a lion will kill you and don't lose no sleep. A gorilla will kill you, don't lose no sleep. A cobra will kill you, don't lose no sleep. The Caucasian is killing us and don't lose no sleep because they are physically composed of the same melanin phenotype of animals. They do not have the neuromelanin, which is manifested within the neuromelanin nerve tract of the brain that allows you to connect to what you call God, the creator, whatever you identify with God as, and possess a conscience. Why do you not have no conscience? Now, why is this important? Because the pineal gland is crucial to the soul. The soul enters the body through the pineal gland. So, if your door is locked, you can't get in your house.
Queen Nefertiti, one of the most beautiful and mysterious women in ancient Egypt, disappeared without a trace. But what happened to her? Nefertiti was an Egyptian queen who married King Akhenaten. known for introducing monotheism to Egypt by replacing the worship of multiple gods with the worship of Aton, the sun god. Despite her legendary status, no one has ever found her tomb, and she vanished from any historical records. After King Akhenaton's 12th regnal year, one of his princesses died, and 3 others disappeared. Nefertiti also vanished, but there is no record of her death or evidence that she was ever buried in the Amarna royal tomb. Her body has never been found. Some believe that she secretly took her husband's place as pharaoh after he died, before handing the throne to Tutankhamun.
With Osiris. So he had him cut up into 14 pieces. Now his body's cut up into 14 pieces, it gets thrown into the Nile River, and Isis, of course, isn't happy about this. Isis tries to collect all the pieces up, and she's only able to find 13 pieces. So she fashions together those 13 pieces to form a more perfect union, which is the framework of our 13 colonies, a more perfect union, based off of the myth of Osiris. Now that's showing Egyptian magic even in the framework and the fabric of our foundation, right? It's not an accident that they brought together 13 colonies to form a more perfect union. That was all by design. It was all manufactured. But what's crazy is that she fashions together these 13 pieces, but guess what piece is missing? So what do? They set up this ritual. That's what the obelisk is, by the way. The obelisk represents the 14th piece that they couldn't find. You find it in the Vatican, you find it in ancient Egypt, you find it here in the States, you find it all over cemeteries, you find it all over the Masonic lodges. It represents the Osiris. And they believe by setting up this ritual, now it's all a recreation of the original ritual that took place between Isis and the 13 pieces of Osiris. The Washington Monument and the Dome of Isis, which is the Capitol building. Now this is fascinating because the original ritual had to take place between in a courtyard, between a dome and an obelisk. Putting those two together like that creates a power generator, literally a generator for this ritual. And the idea is that the seed of Osiris, the seed, is going to come up and emit out of Washington Monument, and it's going to take over whoever our president is. Now this sounds crazy, but think about this. In ancient Egypt, what had happened was the pharaoh would go through this ritual, he would enter in a man, and he would exit the ritual a god. That was their belief, and they believed that their pharaoh was literally the embodiment of Osiris because of that ritual. They were calling him up out of the underworld. So what we have in America is this same ritual basically that the Freemasons believe that they have maintained the proper language and the ritual to a T from the ancient world. They claim to have this still today. They're right there between the dome and the obelisk, right there in that power generator, and right around the corner at the Herodome, which is what they call the Masonic Mecca of the world, literally. The Herodome is this temple, this massive, crazy temple in DC. They are up there while they do this ritual, and they are literally doing the raising of Osiris ritual while the presidential inauguration happens at every election. And they are literally calling on the spirit of Osiris to raise up, or Apollo, however you want to slice it, to come out of the underworld and to possess, exits the ritual, a god. Wow. This is what the Freemasons believe. Now people are going to say, well, not every president's a Freemason. Well, most of them have ties to secret societies, but they're not all conscious of the ritual. It's been going on now since the beginning, to our knowledge, since the beginning of this nation being set up. They believe that it's going to stick eventually. See, they don't know which president is going to be the final Osiris. Now, they believed in the foundation of this nation that Washington was a type. He was the first Osiris. Technically, every president in their eyes is an Osiris, but the crazy thing is that not every time the ritual is going to stick. They have to keep doing it until it actually sticks and they get that one that they've been waiting for. This is kind of like when we talk about Babylon working. You know, how many years, was Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard working in the desert trying to get this ritual to stick? They do this at the inauguration of every U.S. president because they believe there is going to come a time in a president that will be the one. He will be the one, and they will go through this ritual when his body lies in state in the Capitol Dome. I believe they're going to do this ritual, and that final raising ritual, that's going to be the one that's going to stick. I don't believe it's going to stick when they're doing it at an inauguration. The real one's going to take place when this Antichrist man dies. They lay him in state in the Capitol building beneath the 72 pentagrams and the apotheosis of George Washington. And that's not it. There's so much more numerology about the Capitol building and the 13 statues and the statutory hall. But I believe that's the real ritual. That's the one where he's going to raise, where the spirit of Osiris, which the Bible talks about this Apollyon coming up from the bottomless pit.
Why was this symbol so powerful in ancient Egypt? The Ankh, a symbol both unassuming and potent, held profound importance within Egyptian culture and spirituality. Representing life and immortality, it was believed to bestow protection and strength upon its bearers. The Ankh's form is often likened to a key, a tool to unlock the portals to the afterlife, bridging the divide between the physical and spiritual realms. The Ankh maintained a close association with the goddess Isis, renowned as the embodiment of life and eternal spirit. Donning the Ankh was thought to establish a connection with her divine influence, granting guidance and wisdom throughout life's journey. Remarkably, the Ankh's significance perseveres in modern times. Wearing it can facilitate a connection with one's inner wisdom, enabling access to their innate divine power, thereby embracing a life of fulfillment. For those aspiring to summon their inner resilience and embrace a more enriching existence, considering adorning the Ankh is advisable. Its spiritual essence retains its potency, directing and safeguarding individuals as they navigate life's pathways, allowing them to harness their internal potential and embrace life's full spectrum.
You might be an alien.
We don't understand. I would rather be that pyramid, right? People don't understand how intelligent we were. To be able to calculate your position and triangulate the stars, get right under there,
right?
Build the world's biggest structure, put the heaviest stones on the top, lightest ones on the bottom,
right?
With no modern day construction. And then to circumnavigate the world and do that all over the world in order to stabilize the Earth's latitude and longitude field, you would have to damn near be an alien, or you would have to possess alien intelligence.
Because we don't know how you got there.
So
how you get from this point to that point and do the exact same thing.
My ancestors already had a template for me to follow, and it was better than yours because you still can't even copy it to this day. We really love the ability to develop thought. We would not stop studying the achievements of Egypt. And the reason Egypt is important is because it was a global civilization. It civilized the world.
Did you know? Queen Cleopatra wasn't just Egyptian royalty, she was actually of Greek descent. Her family, the Ptolemies, ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years after Alexander the Great. Born in 69 BC, Cleopatra spoke over 9 languages fluently, making her one of the most educated rulers of her time. From Greek to Egyptian, she could converse with anyone. Despite popular belief, Cleopatra wasn't just a pretty face. She was a savvy politician who formed powerful alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, 2 of Rome's most influential men. And here's the craziest fact. Cleopatra is often depicted as incredibly beautiful, but many historians believe her true power lay in her intelligence and charm, rather than her looks. Cleopatra was also a chemist. Some sources suggest she experimented with early cosmetics and perfumes, even creating her own signature scent. Subscribe for more historical surprises.
According to Graham Hancock, we cannot sensibly accept the insistence of Egyptologists that the Sphinx is just 4,500 years old, from 2500 BC. The ancient Egyptians were there, but Hancock believes that they found the Sphinx already created and already heavily eroded, and that they then recarved its head into the head of a pharaoh. And that head, as Professor Robert Schoch and others have pointed out, is way too small in relation to the body. That makes sense if it was a heavily eroded lion head which was then later cut down into the head of a pharaoh. The geology speaks to the original Sphinx being more than 12,000 years old, and its rainfall. Its erosion caused by heavy rains that is the enigma on the Great Sphinx.
This is the weird thing about Giza, my friend, is that there are things that have gone underground in Egypt that, for whatever reason, Joe, is just off limits to the public. There's something called the Osiris Shaft, which is located directly under the causeway between the Sphinx and the second pyramid. And it goes about 100 feet underground. It's carved out of the limestone bedrock. It's the creepiest place I've ever been in my life. It's disturbing.
Why is it disturbing?
I don't know, Joe. Well, there's human bones in there. I stepped on. I didn't even know.
What?
Yeah.
That's the shaft right there?
Yes, that's the entrance into it, and then you go straight down from there.
God, look at the line of people.
Yeah, you got to pay $2,000 to
Look
get
at
in there.
litter floating around.
It's everywhere.
Potato chip bags. Really?
So that's the first shaft. So it's 3 different shafts, and you go down, and here's where it gets, this is the crazy part. When you get to the 3rd level, which is completely dark and freaky, there was a side tunnel. Zahi Hawass himself, there was a documentary, it was either 96 or 99, he went down there, and he's standing in front of this tunnel that went sideways, and he says, it's yet to be explored, and I don't know what's down there. And I'm thinking, the hell you don't know what's down there? Like, you never walked down there? But Joe, they've since sealed it up. It's like cinder blocks. They sealed it up.
What?
Yes. There's
what?
Swear to God.
Why would they seal it up?
That's a really, hey Joe, I really want to know that the answer to that question.
Who is Pharaoh Akhenaten? Was he an alien? The first heretic? The personification of Moses? The one who revealed the mystery schools to the world? The originator of the one true God concept and monotheism? The one who decreed that all the other gods were dead? Potential father to the most famous pharaohs of all time? Husband to one of the most beautiful women in history? The first Machiavellian leader? Or one of the first leaders who believed that the rays of light was all that was needed to cleanse the earth? This simple question has captivated the imaginations of Egyptologists and of the mystery schools of the occult world for centuries. So let's get into it. The rise of Pharaoh Akhenaten. Akhenaten was born during the 18th dynasty, which some believe was the height of Egyptian power. His parents were Amenhotep III and Queen Tia, or Queen T. His father was considered to be one of the greatest pharaohs in Egyptian history, but the relationship between him and the priesthood of Amun became rocky when he married Queen T, who was a commoner and not of royal blood. In those days, the priesthood of Amun was more powerful than the pharaoh himself. They had captivated the minds and the hearts of the Egyptian people, owned more than 25% of the land at that time, and was constantly showered by the people with gifts of gold, livestock, and slaves. The reason for the controversy between the priesthood and Amenhotep, it was that the lineage of kings was passed down through the woman, not the male. This would make any ruler produced by Amenhotep III and Queen T to be illegitimate. It is rumored that the priesthood even kidnapped and assassinated their firstborn son, Thutmose, who was the heir apparent and the high priest of Amun and Ptah. Because of that, many scholars debate that Queen T kept Akhenaten, then Amenhotep IV, away from public life in order to protect him from the priesthood, which could explain why there are no royal paintings with Akhenaten with the family. In 1353 BC, after the death of his father, from natural causes, Akhenaten and his queen Nefertiti would rise to the throne. Akhenaten was only 17 years old at the time. His first political move would be to build temples to the Aten in Karnak, Luxor, and Thebes, the 3 cultural centers of Egypt. But he would not make any drastic religious/political moves until the 5th year of his reign. Worship of the Aten. In the 5th year of Akhenaten's reign, he would change his name from Amenhotep, meaning Amun is satisfied, to Akhenaten, which translates to one who is in great service of the Aten. Worship of the Aten actually stretches back to the Old and Middle Kingdoms, and Akhenaten's father, Amenhotep III, actually had priests of the Aten in Heliopolis. But this new Aten was the creator god behind the power of the sun, instead of the sun itself. So not only would the worship of the Aten become the state religion, Akhenaten would ban the worship of all other gods, and considered the old gods to be dead. There are rumors that he used his soldiers to murder priests of Amun and to shut down all other temples and even go as far as to defacing images of other gods. Although this thrust Egypt into a new era of art, it made the rest of Egyptians uneasy because it messed with their beliefs about the afterlife. Now their hearts would not be weighed on the scale of Mayat, and as we will see in later videos, their bodies would not be taken care of properly when it came to burial rites. Which means if they lived a good life, they would not be brought back to life on the other side. To make matters worse, in this new religion, only Akhenaten and the royal family were the conduits to the Aten. He was the sole priest and messenger of the Aten. Excerpt from the great hymn to the Aten written by Pharaoh Akhenaten. You appear glorious in the sky's horizon, living sun disk, beginner of life. Arisen in the eastern horizon, you fill every land with your beauties. You bright, you great, you radiant, elevated over all each land. Your rays surround the lands. As limits to all which you made, as sun god you reach all their limits. As so to bend them to your beloved sun. Although you are far away, your rays are upon the earth. You are present in the rays, but untracked are your strides. For the record, this hymn is often compared to Psalms 104 in the Bible. The ancient city of Akhetaten, or more formally known as the city of Amarna. The ancient city of Akhetaten was established in the 5th year of Akhenaten's reign, and it is from this ancient city that we get the new wave of Egyptian art, depicting for the first time the royal family in very intimate settings. The city was meant to serve as the new capital of Egypt, jam-packed with palaces and temples all dedicated to the Aten, and this city would similarly appear overnight. What some deemed an oasis, others deemed a hell on earth, and it would appear that the rays of the Aten only shone down on the royal family. For starters, many inhabitants still worship the old gods, and there are reports of malnutrition, child labor, and mass graves filled with improper burials. Akhenaten would finish out his 17-year reign here, and the city would be abandoned immediately after his death. First off, let me start by saying this. Number one, we have to stop romanticizing history. First off, I believe the whole actions behind this god, the Aten, and the one god religion was strictly political. He may or may not have actually believed it. I mean, from the poetry, I know he had to believe it some, but it was obviously a way to consolidate power. I could care less if this man was an alien or not. He obviously did not care about his people. And we know this from the mass graves, the malnutrition, while he lived in luxury, and the child laborers. In conclusion, I believe he was just another corrupt leader manipulating people through religion. Take it or leave it.
Two of the most dangerous men in the Bible, Pharaoh of Egypt, Exodus. In the book of Exodus, Pharaoh serves as a representative figure who resisted Moses' demand to release the Israelites from slavery. Pharaoh's stubbornness and refusal to heed God's warnings led to a series of devastating plagues upon Egypt, including the death of the firstborns. Although Pharaoh's identity isn't explicitly mentioned, his portrayal as the antagonist in the Exodus narrative depicts him as a powerful and dangerous figure opposing God's will. King Herod the Great. King Herod is known for his reign during the time of Jesus' birth. He is depicted in the Gospel of Matthew as a ruthless and insecure ruler who ordered the killing of all male infants in Bethlehem in an attempt to eliminate the prophesied newborn king of the Jews. Herod's actions demonstrate the extent of his cruelty and the lengths he was willing to go to maintain his power. This is the end of this episode. Follow for more.
I will never look at ancient tombs the same way after hearing this. When Howard Carter discovered Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of the Kings, he unearthed not just treasures, but a curse. The curse of the pharaohs. A tale of doom for those who disturbed the boy king's rest. Soon after the tomb's opening, Lord Carnarvon, the financier, died mysteriously. an infected mosquito bite. Lights in Cairo flickered out at the moment of his death. Coincidence? Or curse? One by one, members of the excavation team fell victim to untimely deaths. Eerie coincidences or a curse's wrath. Modern science whispers of mold and bacteria, but the eerie tale persists. The mystery of Tutankhamun's tomb remains, a chilling reminder of ancient powers and the unknown. Was it the curse, or just stories spun by time? The legend lives on, haunting us from the sands of Egypt.
Dirty facts about ancient Egypt. 1. Pharaohs, to demonstrate their virility and divine connection, performed a public fertility ritual involving the Nile. 2. They believed in an afterlife filled with carnal pleasures. Hence, some pharaohs were buried with everything needed for a rollicking good time, including aphrodisiacs. 3. Contraception was surprisingly sophisticated. One method involved a paste made from dates, acacia, and honey. 4. Sexuality was fluid and open. Artwork often depicted both heterosexual and homosexual relationships. Like and subscribe for more facts.